Stop everything, because this is the moment the internet wasn't prepared for. After weeks of whispers, side-eyes, and silence that felt heavier than any statement, Claressa Shields has reportedly reached a breaking point, and what she's been allegedly telling people behind closed doors is sending shockwaves through celebrity circles. This isn't a petty fallout. This isn't vague shade. This is an emotional unraveling that fans say exposes a betrayal she never saw coming, one that allegedly involves Remy and Papoose in ways that reframe everything we thought we knew. According to insiders lighting up private chats, Claressa didn't just feel sidelined, she felt set up. Promises made in private, loyalties assumed, boundaries she believed were understood suddenly crossed in public. And when the silence finally cracked, what spilled out wasn't anger, it was hurt. The kind that comes when trust dissolves quietly and you realize too late you were the last to know. Fans claim there are emotional voice notes, timestamp messages, and conversations that paint a very different picture from the calm we were shown online. Social media felt it before it heard it. The energy shifted. The posts changed. The warmth vanished. And now, with rumors of Claressa breaking down and connecting the dots out loud for the first time, the internet is asking one terrifying question. Was this all happening behind her back? Because if even part of what's being whispered is true, this isn't just drama. It's a betrayal that could rewrite the entire timeline. And what allegedly comes next is the part nobody is ready for. The first crack didn't sound like a scream. It sounded like disbelief. According to people close to the situation, Claressa Shields didn't wake up one morning ready to expose anything. She unraveled slowly, piece by piece, as moments that once felt harmless began replaying with a different meaning. The smiles that lingered a second too long, the conversations that stopped abruptly when she entered the room, the plans that quietly changed without explanation. At first, she brushed it off. That's what trust does, it fills in gaps with faith. But when patterns started stacking on top of each other, faith turned into questions she couldn't ignore. Insiders say Claressa had believed she was moving inside a circle built on mutual respect. Not just romance or friendship, but shared understanding. She had shown up. She had supported. She had assumed loyalty was a given. That assumption, according to whispers, is what made the realization hit harder when things stopped adding up. It wasn't one moment, it was the accumulation. The kind that sneaks up on you while you're busy being solid for everyone else. The first emotional hit reportedly came when Claressa noticed she was no longer being looped into conversations she used to be part of. Not intentionally excluded, but conveniently overlooked. Group plans shifted. Information arrived late, and when she asked about it, the answers were vague, almost rehearsed. People close to her say she began feeling like she was standing just outside a glass wall, able to see everything, but no longer invited inside. That's when the dots started connecting. According to alleged insider accounts, Claressa began revisiting moments she'd dismissed before. A conversation she wasn't meant to overhear. A change in tone when certain names came up. A silence that followed questions instead of clarity. And the most painful part? Realizing she had defended people publicly who may not have been protecting her privately. The name Papoose reportedly came up first, not in anger but confusion. Sources say Claressa felt something shift in how he spoke, how he moved, how he chose neutrality at moments that felt personal to her. Not wrong on paper, but emotionally loud. And when neutrality starts feeling like absence, it creates space for doubt to grow. Then came the layer that truly broke her composure. The realization that Remy may have known more than Claressa did, earlier, quieter, and without ever saying it out loud. No accusation, no public claim, just a heavy sense of being outpaced emotionally. Insiders stress that what hurt Claressa wasn't rivalry or jealousy, it was the shock of feeling unprotected in a space she believed was safe. Friends say Claressa's breakdown wasn't explosive. It was internal, silent tears, long pauses, rereading messages that once felt reassuring but now sounded different in hindsight. She reportedly asked herself one question over and over. When did I become the last to know? That question haunted her. Because betrayal doesn't always look like a backstab. It often looks like being slowly edged out while everyone else pretends nothing changed. The alleged emotional unraveling intensified when Claressa realized the internet was clocking shifts before she had confirmation herself. Fans speculated. Commentators assumed, and strangers began narrating her life in ways that felt invasive and inaccurate. According to people close to her, that outside noise amplified the internal hurt. It made her feel exposed before she had even processed what she was feeling. At this stage, insiders claim Claressa finally spoke up privately. Not online, not publicly. She allegedly confronted the people she felt closest to, not with accusations, but with questions, direct ones, painful ones. The kind that force honesty or silence. And it was the silence, according to whispers, that did the most damage. Not denial, not defense, just a lack of urgency to reassure her. That moment, sources say, is when Claressa emotionally broke. Not because she wanted drama, but because the foundation she thought she stood on suddenly felt unstable. She reportedly cried not out of rage, but out of grief, for a version of connection she believed was real. For trust she had extended without hesitation. For a narrative that shifted without her consent. What shocked those close to her most was how long she tried to hold it together. Claressa is known for discipline, resilience, control, but emotional betrayal doesn't care how strong you are. It bypasses logic and hits identity. Insiders say she questioned herself more than anyone else, wondering if she misread everything, if she expected too much, if she filled in blanks that were never meant to be filled. As the emotional weight piled on, Claressa reportedly pulled back, not to punish anyone but to protect herself. Distance became survival. Silence became a shield, and in that withdrawal, the internet misread her calm as indifference, when in reality it was containment. She wasn't disappearing, she was stabilizing. The most devastating part, according to whispers, wasn't what she learned, it was how she learned it. Not through honesty, but through absence. Through realizing she was no longer being considered in decisions that affected her emotionally. Through watching relationships she thought were solid continue without her input. That realization doesn't just hurt, it reshapes how you trust going forward. By the end of this phase, insiders say Claressa wasn't angry, she was clear. Clear that something had broken. Clear that explanations might come too late. Clear that even if no one intended harm, the impact was real. And once impact replaces intent, there's no undo button. What she didn't know yet, and what people close to the situation say is still unfolding, is how deep those fractures truly go. Because as Claressa began piecing together the emotional timeline, a new layer of information allegedly surfaced. One that suggested this wasn't just miscommunication, but a series of quiet choices made without her. And if that layer proves true, then what felt like heartbreak may turn into something far more devastating. What came next, according to people who claim to be close enough to know, is where the hurt stopped being abstract and started becoming painfully specific. Claressa Shields didn't just feel distant. She allegedly began uncovering moments that suggested decisions had been made without her, conversations had happened around her, and loyalties she assumed were mutual had quietly shifted. Not in one explosive reveal, but in fragments. The worst kind. The kind that force you to relive the past with a new lens and realize the meaning was there all along, just hidden in plain sight. Insiders say Claressa started hearing things secondhand. Comments made casually. Jokes that landed too close to the truth. Someone mentioning a conversation she was never part of, then quickly changing the subject. It was subtle, but it stacked. And once it stacked, she reportedly began asking herself whether she'd been standing in a triangle without ever being told there was one. That thought alone, sources say, sent her spiraling. The name Papoose kept coming up in these realizations, not as an aggressor, but as a presence that suddenly felt emotionally unavailable. According to whispers, Claressa felt like his neutrality had slowly turned into absence at moments when she needed reassurance most. Not public reassurance, private, the kind that doesn't trend. And when she didn't get it, doubt filled the space where trust used to sit. Then there was the most painful layer. The growing belief that Remy may have known exactly how precarious the situation was long before Claressa ever did. Insiders are careful to say this isn't being framed as malicious intent, but as something arguably more devastating: awareness without intervention. Knowing someone is emotionally vulnerable and choosing not to clarify, not to protect, not to speak up. That, according to those close to Claressa, is what she interpreted as betrayal. Friends claim Claressa's emotional breakdown happened the night everything finally clicked. Not in public, not on social media. Alone, reportedly after revisiting messages and timelines that suddenly aligned in ways they never had before. Messages that once sounded reassuring now read evasive. Delays that once seemed normal now felt intentional. And in that moment, the story she'd been telling herself, that everything was fine, that she was respected, that loyalty was mutual, collapsed. According to alleged insider accounts, Claressa cried not because she lost something, but because she realized she had been emotionally managing a situation she was never fully informed about. That realization is brutal. It forces you to question your instincts, your generosity, your boundaries. It makes you wonder how long you were smiling in rooms where the energy had already shifted. What intensified the pain was the sense that the internet was piecing it together faster than she was. Commentary channels speculated, fans debated, and Claressa, still processing privately, felt exposed. People were asking questions she hadn't answered for herself yet. According to those close to her, that external pressure turned confusion into heartbreak, because betrayal hurts more when it becomes content. At this point, insiders say Claressa finally confronted the situation directly, not online, not theatrically, privately. The conversation, as described by Whispers, wasn't accusatory, it was raw. She allegedly asked direct questions she'd been avoiding. Who knew what? When did things change? Why wasn't she told? And it's the alleged responses, or lack of them, that did the most damage. Vague answers, long pauses, reassurances that came too late to feel genuine. Sources insist the most devastating moment wasn't hearing something shocking, it was realizing no one rushed to protect her feelings once they understood how hurt she was. That absence of urgency, according to insiders, confirmed what she feared most, that she had been emotionally deprioritized. And once someone who prides themselves on strength realizes they weren't chosen in moments that mattered, it cuts deeper than any argument ever could. Claressa's supporters say this is when her demeanor changed completely. She didn't lash out, she didn't expose anyone publicly. She withdrew, focused, tightened her circle. Because when trust fractures, silence becomes safer than explanation. And yet that same silence was immediately weaponized by critics, who framed it as guilt, denial, or defeat. Behind the scenes, insiders claim Claressa felt torn between speaking her truth and protecting her peace. She reportedly understood that once she spoke publicly, the narrative would escalate beyond repair. But staying silent meant letting others define what happened. That internal tug-of-war is what allegedly broke her down emotionally. Not the betrayal itself, but the realization that there was no clean way out. As the days passed, more alleged details surfaced in private circles, claims of missed calls, of conversations happening at times Claressa was deliberately excluded, of boundaries being renegotiated without her knowledge. None of it publicly confirmed, all of it devastating if even partially true. And according to people close to her, Claressa didn't need proof anymore. She felt the shift in how she was treated. The emotional toll reportedly showed up physically. Friends say she became quieter, more inward, training harder but laughing less, present but guarded. And while the public praised her discipline, those who knew her best recognized the signs of someone protecting a wound that hadn't healed yet. What hurt most, insiders say, was the realization that she may have been extending loyalty in a dynamic that no longer required it. That she was fighting to preserve a sense of unity others had already mentally moved past. And once that realization set in, the heartbreak turned into clarity. By the end of this phase, Claressa allegedly reached one unavoidable conclusion. Betrayal doesn't always come with a villain. Sometimes it comes with people choosing comfort over honesty, silence over clarity. And that realization, while devastating, was also freeing. Because once she accepted that she couldn't force transparency from people unwilling to give it, she stopped blaming herself. And in that moment, quiet, painful, and deeply personal, something shifted inside her. Not toward revenge, toward resolution. What she didn't know yet, according to whispers still circulating, is that there may be more to uncover. More context, more conversations she hasn't heard about. And if those pieces surface, this story may move from emotional betrayal to something far more complicated. Because heartbreak is one thing, but realizing you were the only one playing fair is another entirely. By the time everything finally settled into place, the pain had already done its damage. According to those closest to the situation, Claressa Shields didn't just feel betrayed, she felt rewritten. Like her role in the story had been quietly edited down while she was still living it in real time. And once that realization took hold, there was no going back to the version of events she'd once believed in. Insiders say the emotional breakdown wasn't loud or dramatic. It was the kind that comes after clarity finally lands, after the denial fades, after you stop hoping there's an explanation that will make everything make sense again. Claressa reportedly reached a point where she no longer needed answers because the pattern itself had answered her. The missed check-ins, the emotional distance, The way conversations felt increasingly careful instead of honest. Those weren't accidents anymore. They were choices. What hit her hardest, according to whispers, was the understanding that she may have been extending loyalty in a dynamic that had already shifted without her consent. She had shown up believing everyone was operating with the same transparency. But the truth, as it slowly revealed itself, suggested otherwise. And when you realize you were the only one still playing by the original rules, the heartbreak becomes something deeper than sadness. It becomes disillusionment. The role of Papoose in that realization was particularly painful. Not because of anything explosive, but because of what didn't happen. Sources say Claressa expected reassurance when things felt uncertain, directness when the energy changed. Instead, she allegedly experienced emotional neutrality at moments that required presence. And neutrality, when trust is on the line, doesn't feel neutral at all. It feels like abandonment. Then there was the layer involving Remy, which insiders describe as the quietest but most devastating part. Claressa reportedly came to believe that Remy had emotional awareness of the situation long before she did. Not that she caused anything, not that she orchestrated harm, but that she may have known the ground was shifting and chose silence over clarity. And for Claressa, that silence cut deeper than words ever could. Friends say the emotional breaking point came when Claressa finally stopped asking herself what she could have done differently and started asking why she had been expected to manage everyone else's comfort at the expense of her own truth. That shift from self-blame to self-protection is what changed everything. Because once that happens, reconciliation becomes less important than integrity. Behind the scenes, insiders claim Claressa made a quiet but firm decision. She would not beg for explanations, and she would not compete for transparency. If people wanted to meet her with honesty, they would. If not, she would step back without theatrics. That decision wasn't fueled by anger. It was fueled by exhaustion, the kind that comes from carrying emotional weight that was never meant to be yours alone. As she withdrew, the internet filled the silence with speculation. Betrayal narratives hardened, sides formed. But Claressa reportedly stopped engaging with any of it. Not because she didn't care, but because she finally understood that public validation wouldn't heal a private wound. She leaned into what she could control: her discipline, her training, her future. And in doing so, she reclaimed something she'd lost during the chaos: her sense of self. Insiders say this phase marked a turning point. Claressa no longer framed herself as someone wronged, but as someone released from a situation that required too much emotional labor. That reframing didn't erase the hurt, but it stripped it of its power. Because betrayal only defines you if you let it rewrite how you see yourself. The most telling moment, according to those watching closely, wasn't a post or a statement. It was her silence paired with consistency. She didn't spiral. She didn't perform heartbreak. She stayed steady. And that steadiness spoke louder than any exposé ever could. It suggested she had processed something deeply personal and chosen growth over spectacle. As for Papoose and Remy, insiders say whatever understanding exists now is quiet and contained. No public declarations, no clarifications, just distance from the noise. Whether that distance is temporary or permanent remains unknown. But one thing is clear to those close to Claressa: she no longer centers herself around unanswered questions. The final twist in this saga isn't a confrontation or a confession, it's acceptance. According to whispers, Claressa has made peace with the idea that betrayal doesn't always come with an apology, and closure doesn't always come with explanations. Sometimes it comes from realizing you don't need either to move forward. And that's what makes this story so unsettling for the internet. There was no dramatic ending, no viral confession, no public villain. Just a woman realizing she deserved clarity and choosing herself when it didn't arrive. Because the hardest truth she had to accept wasn't that people hurt her. It was that she survived it quietly and walked away stronger without ever needing to prove it. If you've stayed with this story until now, understand something clearly. This wasn't just celebrity tea or another viral spiral. This was a real-time lesson in how silence, loyalty, and unspoken choices can hurt just as deeply as outright betrayal. What Claressa Shields has allegedly gone through struck a nerve because so many people recognized themselves in it. The moment you realize you were giving more honesty, more protection, more emotional labor than you were receiving. And this is exactly why you cannot disengage now. Stories like this don't end when the emotions settle. They resurface when someone finally speaks plainly, when one interview answer slips, when a single post reframes everything we thought we understood. If you're not locked in, you won't just miss gossip, you'll miss the context that explains why the next chapter hits the way it does. So don't scroll past this moment. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe silence was the real betrayal here, or was this a case of expectations colliding with reality? Was Claressa protecting her peace, or was she left with no other choice? These conversations matter, and this is where they actually happen. Hit like if you felt the shift when the narrative stopped being loud and started being painful. Subscribe now, because when this story circles back, and insiders swear it will, you don't want to be reacting late, confused, or misled by half-told clips. You want to already understand the layers, because the most dangerous part of stories like this isn't what's said, it's what finally gets said next.